Guitarist from the band called Slave Pig, and you're watching Pure Metal with Gods, motherfuckers!
Hi there, this is Anna from Imaginature Band, and you're watching Pure Metal of Gods magazine on YouTube.
Matt Cavalera here, man, sending you good metal vibes. Good luck with your podcast. Good company. Keep it metal. Keep supporting the metal world, the whole universe of metal.
This is Sasha
And Andre
from Major Moments.
You're watching Pure Metal of Gods on YouTube.
Rock on!
Hello, my name is Tommi Manninen and this is Get Open! And you are listening and watching Pure Metal of Gods magazine on YouTube. Let's rock!
Hi guys, this is Dennis Prophecy, and you're listening to your Pure Metal of Gods on yeah! Fuck yeah!
This is Matt Miller,
and this is Jordan Kelso,
and you're watching Pure Metal of the Gods magazine on YouTube.
Hey, this is Jeff Patera for that, and you're watching Pure Metal of the Gods. Stay blessed, stay possessed.
This is Pure Metal of Gods. I'm Dan Cartwright, your host, and I'm here with James Marino.
Nice to be here with you.
Yeah, nice to hear from you too. Sorry about, what's going on, but just to show everyone, I'm very into metal and music, and I'm not going to let a little discomfort keep me from doing this interview with you, James.
Awesome, mate.
Let's talk about how the Wolves of Avalon got together and how this project came to be.
It's 2009. The band or project started. It was through some contacts through the Gododdin Records label. The guy who runs the label there called Kryn, who I'd known for quite some time. And yeah, he threw a message out and he said, because he'd heard some of the demos that I'd put together previously, and he said, would you be interested in essentially joining a project, Pagan Metal? And I said yes, and we started putting some demos together, and it went along. We got guests involved and things like that, and here we are. Still doing it 15 years later or whatever it is.
I mean, I heard some of the music. I know you guys did a remake of Venom and Venom. What was it? Die Hard, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was like really cool. Did any of the members join you guys on this project for the remake?
Yeah, the guitarist. He jumped in, which was pretty awesome. And then
Jeff's really cool, man.
Amazing, mate. Absolutely legendary. And then on the flip side, after that, a few years later, we did some stuff on our most recent album with their singer, Tony Dolan. So
Werewolves howl and vipers hiss.
Yeah, Tony's amazing as well. Let's talk about the song that Kelsey did with you guys. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
What about the most recent record?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the label got in touch with him and said, look, we're working on this new album. We'd love to have you guest on it. Would you be interested? And he was like, yeah. So I personally was over the moon because, Venom Inc., just iconic band. So to have any of those guys anywhere near our music is a massive honor. So I was pretty stoked to say the least. He was put in touch with me and I sent over the demo of the song and he liked it and laid down his vocals. And to be honest, I had no preconceptions of, I was like, whatever I'm going to get back is going to be great. So I kind of didn't have any sort of fixed idea of what it would sound like. But yeah, he came back and did it was like quite a sort of spoken word sort of narrative. It wasn't necessarily like his usual singing style. It was amazing, like very atmospheric, exactly what could have more than I could have hoped for. So yeah, that's kind of it really. But yeah, I've dropped him a couple of messages since. He seems to really like the record as well and what I've done with it. So that's even better.
No, listening to the group and the new record, I like how you incorporated a different variety to each song, especially like on the title track. You have that black metal vocal style going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I love black metal. I love thrash metal, death metal, but basically anything in between, as well as a whole load of other music. And I think definitely one of the things that at the start of this band or project, it was definitely the sort of mutual love of like black metal and pagan metal that sort of forged the beginnings of it. But I think since then we've sort of deviated from like a sort of a traditional black metal sound or style and introduced some perhaps more like eclectic or progressive rock influences. And obviously with the folk instruments, there's always going to be an element of that. So I really appreciate you think that you can hear that there's like lots of different elements to it. And I think each track kind of has its own ambience to it and sound. And we were going for that because at the same time, we're also trying to tell a story as well as create an album. So yeah, that's kind of what we like to try and do, is create something that's like a bit of almost like a backdrop to the actual narrative, like that the lyrics are telling. And I also quite enjoy experimenting with sounds and styles that aren't necessarily in just like what you'd get on a typical black metal or pagan metal album. So yeah, there's a bit of this and that in there. I don't necessarily think it's going to be to everyone's taste. It's a fairly niche style anyway. But I'm very proud with what we've got on our last record, especially.
Let's talk about that. How you guys are like combining different elements and all that. I mean, what was the most complicated process to get everything to glue in and tie the elements and fine tune it? I mean, what structures do you guys how to overcome to, because me and you both know when you're doing something like that, it's a lot of trial and error, you know. How did you go about that? And also for the demo and then going into the studio to perfect it?
Yeah, it is. There is a lot of trial and error, 100%. And I think over the years I've kind of refined a little bit how I how we achieve the end record. It always, as you say, I just start with demos, like ideas. It could be a riff, could be a melody, not even necessarily on the guitar. Sometimes I just structure something out using the bass, and then, or sometimes actually a keyboard as well. There's not necessarily a one like start point, and then I'll listen back to what I've got and try and structure it. Some things just don't make the cut, and then other things, I stick with. And then when our vocalist comes in, he'll have a listen through and sort of quality control a lot of that. He'll be like, no, that's not good enough. Or why don't you try this? Or I was thinking we could get a violinist in to fill that section out. So then maybe I'll pull out the guitar line and say, okay, I'll just leave that part of the song for the violins to try and tell their part of the story in that section. So it is a bit chop and change. And the tricky thing, as well, as you said, is obviously because we've got a lot of like guest musicians and folk musicians, you try and sort of find the right part of the song for them to really showcase what they're doing. I think where I've changed a little bit my approach since earlier on is it was just everything going on a little bit more all at once, but that was fine. It was raw and it worked. But yeah, over the years, I've just kind of tried to refine where each thing is really doing what it does best, I guess.
Well,
I hope.
cool. I mean, you're succeeding at it because I mean, I'm a musician too, and going back to trial and error, like you said, if the vocal line doesn't fit with that part, you try and take back a guitar, and let's just do the bass and drum with that little section, and I get it, and how much control?
Isn't it?
yeah, it really is. Especially like when you go into the studio and if you're not recording at home and you're in an actual studio and time and money, you really want to refine your work beforehand. How do you go about it with the communicating with the producer on your story, on what the song is, because each song takes a different nuance compared to the previous song, and from your previous albums, are you working with the same producer, or are you getting different producers, that to bring out that story compared to the previous album?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a blessing and a curse, perhaps, but it is actually, I end up doing all the production, mixing and everything as well. So I'm in one hand, that's good because I've got like quite a sort of strict creative like vision for the album and each track. So that part's good. Where it's less good and less helpful, and sometimes can become a longer winded process than it needs to be, is that there's not necessarily anyone else there to bounce off. So you're not getting that sort of immediate feedback. You can be living with a fairly bad idea for sometimes too long, and then realize later that you are probably not pursuing the right direction for the song. But in terms of being able to do the recording and the mixing and everything in house is good, because it gives us sort of time to refine things. I demo most of the stuff first here, and then when it comes to actually laying the tracks down and getting them like to a more sort of releasable level, I'll hire out a drum studio, which comes, with soundproofing and microphones and everything else. So that's absolutely fundamental. Once I've tracked everything, I'll throw it all on a hard drive and then bring it back here, flesh things out, and then maybe go back to another sort of studio suite again if necessary. But yeah, pretty much everything is done here. For better or worse.
Well, I mean, I like the idea that you're in control of the music, you're self-producing, but like you said, the downside is that you screw up, it falls back on you. But you have your bandmates and your family and friends. When I'm sure you do like every other music. Hey, check this out, or tell me you're on a Symbian, before you say that's the final mix. How many times do you go about doing that with your production work?
That's a good question. I think like throughout the whole process, the singer and I, like we are always listening back to where we are at with things. So we're both thinking, is this good? Can we do something to improve where it's at? There's a couple of friends I play some stuff to. My girlfriend, she has to listen to a lot of the stuff that I do, whether she likes it or not. Unfortunately for her, sometimes
I did the same thing with my wife that passed away back in the day. And God bless their hearts. They put up with so much from us.
Yeah, they do. They do.
So I mean, you know what? For all the women that are dating musicians, I thank you. I know he definitely thanks you. Because it means a lot having their support. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. This is still fundamentally something I do just for the love of it. It is just that. So yeah, it makes me happy. I just really enjoy writing and creating music, and if there are other people out there that enjoy that as well, that's all you can ask for, isn't it? Really, especially these days where I think it's quite difficult to make a business of it. But I'm not really that bothered about that kind of thing anyway. It's as long as I've got this in my life and my music, whether it's mine or other people's, it's a big deal to me.
It completes you either way. Let's talk about your previous albums. That going from the first album to the second and third, how much of a challenge was it to, surpass the previous album and new ideas? How much of a challenge was that on the guitar and you know what I mean? Different techniques, different styles.
That's a good question. I think at the start, not difficult, because there was no previous records. There was no sort of template or sort of sound that I felt that we'd sort of delivered or achieved on. So it was kind of blank canvas and just go in, and what comes out is what we do. But with each year or each album, you're right, I do tend to look at some of what we've done retrospectively from a sort of a creative standpoint, and would like to improve and better it. And from a production point of view, I think I've achieved that. From a songwriting point of view, I just hope that, I enjoy the most recent release that we've made. I'm really proud of it. So I think we've done a good job at doing that, but not for me to say. It depends on what everyone else would think on that, I suppose, whether it's better or not. But you just keep writing. I guess that's literally it. I just keep writing stuff, and then if it's good enough, I'll keep it, and if it's not, I don't. But where I think the process has become more refined is actually in the recording stage, because initially it was very much like I did record everything here. It was like a garage setup, so there was no studio. I was saying about we go to a studio and track the drums. We didn't do that first time round. So yeah, that's why it's quite raw. But I love that about it. But of course, when you start sort of getting critical of what you're doing and want to improve it, you kind of look at the areas you can improve upon, of which one of them was the drum sound and like the way we put the album together. So yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. I think what I have definitely learned is, because I'm not a folk musician, I can't play violins and cellos and all that kind of thing. I mean, I'm kind of in awe of people who can do that. So, but what I have learned more about those instruments is how they work functionally, like through the feedback those musicians give me. So it's like, okay, I know now that like a violin like shouldn't be doing this or that, and it's like, okay, their feedback has definitely helped as well. But yeah, that's kind of it, really. But
when I first started learning how to play music, the first thing my grandmother did was put me on the piano, and then the piano with cello, and then later on it was the violin, then the guitar. And God, I had a fight to get on the guitar, but I was glad that she taught me a little bit of each one of those instruments, because it does come in handy, especially when you're writing. If you kind of know the fundamentals of where these parts, how they should sound, it does help in that classical sense. You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that musical theory sort of foundation that sort of drives the tracks and everything. But yeah, I mean, I have a relatively sort of fundamental level of it, understanding of it. But like you said, when you got someone that comes along and they can actually show you how these things work, like practical experience is, yeah, it's just so it's great. that's the one really for me. And then the violinists, like a couple of them I've actually managed to meet with them in person as well. So we've actually recorded in the room, so I can actually see how it's working. That's
you can't without if you don't know how to do it, and then seeing an actual violinist come in and, no, I think this part will be better suited like this, and it gives you a better idea and broadening your musical theory as well. Just that experience and knowledge of, because what you are composing, and let's be honest, it's a theatrical piece, especially when you're incorporating violins, pianos, cellos, whatever in the music. It becomes a theatrical piece. And I think that's what a lot of the generation kind of, that are self-taught don't realize. You need to know a little knowledge on it. If not, like you said, you're winging it, and hopefully it's going to come out the way it should sound.
Yeah, exactly that.
Excuse me, I'm just trying to laugh, just really irritating. But other than that, how do you come up with your concept albums? Like the story production, like what you're going to write about. What are you reading that captures your imagination of, let's create an album on this topic?
Yeah, a whole load of things. To be honest, the actual concepts and the lyrics I don't write. A singer, he comes up with the idea for the albums themselves, all of which are based on historical British events and heroes. So to a large extent, the stories already exist, in part. Some perhaps based on not necessarily so much on fact, but on the fact that they're folk stories and they're passed through the generations.
So you're just going by the So the research and the facts, they're going by the legend of the lore. And I think that's cool because it gives it a unique feeling of vibe. It gives your audience a journey, actually, into that imagination.
I think so. I think so as well. I love what he does. I mean, all of the stories are focused on sort of war fundamentally, but he tries to say on some artistic license, let's say, because the good thing is that we can, because the stories themselves aren't necessarily all like fixed in sort of historical facts. There is like the ability to sort of deviate from that sort of path and put on perhaps a bit more of a personal lens on these things, which he does. And the stories themselves we love, just from a perspective of the fact that you're not necessarily taught in school growing up these stories about Britain. And I think it is just one way we can help sort of retell these stories, is to keep them alive and make some music.
No, it's a great idea. I mean, I kind of, hearing this last album, your latest album, I should say, it really takes you into a journey. It does. The whole atmosphere of the album, it's like it breathes. It's kind of like an ocean wave. You know what I mean?
Amazing. Yeah. Stokes, you think that is great to hear. Yeah, that is what we wanted to do.
No, I think you captured it. Here's my question to you: what's your favorite track off of the album that you just released?
That's really difficult to say. As an actual collection of songs, I love all of it from a point of view that they all work together as a journey for the immediacy of a song that you could put on and just listen to. The Shining Company is probably like quite an immediate track. There's not too many changes in it. It's quite linear. It really drives along. But from a creative point of view, Is This How It's Meant to Be is probably my favorite musically or creatively, let's say, because of there are a lot of sort of changes in it. There's a lot of other elements drawn from folk music in it, and it is quite quirky as well, because while we take what we do quite seriously, we also like to have a little bit of fun with it and put some sort of jovial personality and quirks in there, because it's metal and folk music, and that we want to have that sort of progressive edge about it, and I think we can do that best through a little bit of personality thrown in there without taking itself too seriously as well. So yeah, that was a long way around getting to the question that you asked. I think the Is This How It Is Meant to Be? Yeah, that's probably my personal favorite. Yeah, how about you? Do you have a favorite on there, or?
Actually, I like the title track, and I the reason why I like it is because how it starts off, and then you don't really expect it to come out with that black metal vocal style.
Yeah.
And then I like the one with Tony in it. That one was like really interesting. I mean, but Tony's like if you listen to him and listen to other projects that he does, he actually captured the essence of what you're trying to do. I mean, he's very talented in that way.
Massively, yeah.
And let's talk about some of your guests that you had on this album and previous albums. Um, who have you brought back a little bit more from previous albums that you're working with and onto this album?
There's one guest that we work with fairly consistently since our second album, who's Thurius from the band Druzka. He's someone that we've always had quite a lot of correspondence with and a great deal of respect for as well, as a musician, extremely talented. And yeah, he's been on our last 3 albums now. The other guys on this album haven't been on anything else that we've done. So Horst from Torquay in Norway was the first time I'd had any contributions from him. They've got a new album coming out as well, which I've heard a couple of tracks off. Sounds amazing. But yeah, the only person is Thurius, I believe. Yeah. Had to think about that one. But yeah, the folk musicians, we had a violinist on this album called Nico. Very talented guy. He's in a UK black metal band called Clash, who are great. They do a lot of gigs as well. Yeah, we have worked with like some of the same folk musicians on our previous albums, but this time, yeah, we've worked with different people. Actually, I hadn't thought about that.
Oh, that's cool. Speaking of like gigs, are you guys doing any shows touring around?
Unfortunately, not. No, we don't gig. We haven't gigged. There isn't any plans to gig either, but I wouldn't rule it out indefinitely. There's always the chance.
I mean, because from what I hear, I'd love to see you guys perform it, just because it would be an amazing show just to be a part of, especially if you like storytelling and folklore music combined. I mean, I think you guys should think about it, because I think your audience will probably, I don't know if any of them message you, hey, when are you guys going to do a show to come check it out?
That's very kind of you. Yeah, you never know. It's something we may do. I think I'll be honest with you. I have thought about it a few times, and it wouldn't be out of the question. Certainly from like a point of view of like the actual core band, like your bass, drums, vocals, guitars, yeah, etc., etc. We could easily do that. But you raise a good point as well, as there is obviously quite a theatrical nature to the songs as well. And I think getting all of those people in the same room at the same time and then committing to gigs and traveling and the expense of all of these things, it can be tricky, because all of our lives have sort of they diverge in different directions and schedules and families and all the rest of it. So, never say never, but I would like to say maybe one day we will do a gig, and yeah, I'll let you know if we do, especially if we're over your way as well.
You know what? I mean, you guys come down to Texas. I know a few promoters out there. So I'll definitely pass them your music. San Antonio's got like a nice kind of like medieval age festival that they do and all that. So I mean, I think you guys would fit great in doing a show there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to come visit. I know I messaged you as well, and you said about that you'd been out and to that place called Marfa.
Oh, Martha, it's in the middle of the West Texas desert. It's 3.5 hours from my hometown, El Paso. But you take I-10, then you get off of US 90, and you run that, and you'll pass Valentine, and then there'll be Martha right there. And you'll know when you see Martha, they have a big, giant, like a old Zeppelin style
Wow.
out
Yeah.
there, and then you get to that one spot I told you about, the rest area, where you can see the lights, and sometimes you'll see them, sometimes you won't. But
Yeah.
it's something to be when you're driving down, you easily just stop and you're just like, wow, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I just can't guarantee if you go down there, you're going to see it. If you know what to do,
Yeah.
or, take a video camera. It'll be
Amazing.
worth it. Okay, so your vocalist is doing a lot of the lyric writing and structure, right? And when he starts, hey, telling you, hey, I got this idea and all this, how do you guys get together and like collaborate your music writing and his lyric writing before that, and like what rituals are you guys practicing, I should say, to get your concept kind of message straight on the path that you guys want to do?
We could probably be better at making a ritual of things, let's say, but I will always be writing stuff. So I've got bits and pieces of what could be songs laying around in my hard drive somewhere, and he will come over because he doesn't live terribly far from me, so we can meet in person, which is quite handy. And we'll listen through a bunch of those ideas, and he'll say, yeah, I've got an idea that we could probably put some of that idea, let's call it idea 1 and idea 6 and idea 10 or whatever it might be. I like those. This is the idea I had for like a narrative or a story. I want to look at this. And then that gives me a good idea of what that story might look like in a musical form. So I'll take that and then work on more ideas that could lend to that story. So it's not like necessarily, there's not like a fast and hard sort of ritual or like means or thing that we do to get from A to Z, but I think it's just sort of ongoing conversations and working on different ideas, and the ones that stick or feel best for the story we're trying to tell, those are the ones we keep. Yeah.
Cool. I kind of like that. That he's over there researching or watching a movie, and it just kind of pops in his head and he starts coming up with the idea, and then he calls you up, and then you guys go through your hard drive and, hey, I got these riffs about a month ago. Maybe we can do something. That's kind of cool. Okay, but when you got with your record label and you presented your album, how did that go? I mean, to get them on board with your project?
Yeah, they've always been really accommodating of what we do, and there's a good relationship there. So the trust is there. Obviously, the Meads of Asphodel, vocalist, other band, is also on this label, Gododdin Records. So yeah, there's never really been any issue like where it's presented at the end and it's like, oh no, what have you done? Thankfully. But yeah, I think being on, I think I might have mentioned somewhere before that it's the what we do, we wouldn't necessarily need the support of a label to do it, but the support that the label has given us in order to realize these pieces of music in a physical format, and also help with the introduction of the many and fantastic guests that we've been lucky enough to have, that is where they've been just absolutely outstanding. So yeah, massive respect to them, and yeah, very grateful for it. So fortunately, it's all been good so far, and I hope it continues that way for a long time.
That's good that you guys got a accommodating label. They're helping you reach out to different artists and all that.
Yeah, for
speaking
sure.
Speaking of that, are you in any other projects? In other groups that you're working with?
Yeah, I do dabble a bit, and actually, funnily enough, like I play live. I've played in quite a few different bands live before. Various guises. If you don't mind, I probably won't mention all of the band's names, but I play in and around the Hertfordshire and London area, have done for quite a few years, and last year was playing gigs up in Rotherham, in near Sheffield, Bristol in the UK, Bournemouth, and all around. But yeah, filling in on either guitar or bass, and sometimes keyboards. But I haven't played keyboards live for quite a long time, so I'm pretty rusty. But what I can play suits me down to a T when it's just in the studio. So, but yeah, I love to make music, whatever that might look or sound like.
Oh, that's
for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you know Enzo from Slammer? He's also in another group called Winters of Wolves or something like that.
Okay, not personally. I don't know him personally.
Yeah, he's a good rhythm guitarist. I did a segment with Jeff and from Venomine and with Slammer on Into the Pit, and that's why I was kind of wondering, because he's from the London area. Figured,
Okay.
Musicians, most of them know each other. You know what I mean? If they're
They
all
do.
local area.
It's a small pool, isn't it? 6 degrees of separation and all that. Especially in our scene. Playing metal, there's only so many bands and musicians that.
Speaking of that, when I talked to Enzo, he said, the metal scene over there was, especially the thrash metal, it wasn't really big in London. Like, you guys didn't have a lot of places to play back in that area.
Yeah, look, I don't like London, especially for many reasons, but I have found that the music scene there has become quite narrowed and a little bit suffocated. There's not enough venues that want to put on that sound or style of music. I found, I could be wrong, but I certainly don't spend as much time socializing these days as I used to. But but nonetheless, I think that where the music scene, especially for metal and alternative music styles, is at its best in the UK, Glasgow, 100%. Up in Scotland, that is, they've got a real good metal scene that's thriving at the moment. Bristol, fantastic as well. And the Midlands and the North, like Sheffield and Rotherham, definitely. Manchester, Leeds. But London just doesn't seem to have. It's not a great place for up and coming bands, I don't think. It's a weird one, because you'd think, oh yeah, you want to go and play in London where there's more people, where there's going to be hopefully more fans and things like that. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be that way these days. It's a shame. You never know; it could change.
Yeah, I mean, you think about London. I mean, look at all the great bands. I mean, that came out of the UK, like Judas Priest, just them, just Iron Maiden, you know.
Oh yeah.
You think there'd be a bigger exposure for the metal scene because of these top-notch bands that came out of their Motorhead and stuff like that. Black Sabbath. I mean, you think London would be like, hey, you know what? You know, we have some really legendary groups that came out of the UK. We should open our doors instead of I don't know what they're into now. Probably like the Spice Girls stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one really. I think London, I think a lot of people, it's very commercial these days, I think, as a city. It's a real commercial hub, and a lot of there's a bar I used to love drinking in London called the Crowbar, and it was man, it was a box room. It was tiny, but it had so much character to it. It had so much personality. It was right next door to a couple of live music venues, which are also sadly now gone as well, as is the Crowbar. And those Camden Town's still pretty good for alternative music and metal, and they've got a couple of good venues there for it as well. But I think there's just not as much opportunity for grassroots artists in the city as what there are in some sort of smaller cities and towns outside of London, which I think are more accommodating to sort of grassroots artists and talent and provide more opportunity to them. And it kind of feeds into itself, the fostering that kind of music scene and the culture and the people that come along with it. Whereas I think London's become, just very commercial. It's more like swanky wine bars and stuff like that. And it's like
kind of very stale now. I mean,
yeah. I mean, London's like great from a tourist perspective. Like, come and see the heritage sites. That's amazing. You know.
Yeah.
There's so much. There's so much stuff to do there from that point of view. But for the specifically live music and metal in particular, I think someone listening might think, what is this guy talking about? He's completely wrong. That's just my opinion, that I've seen over the years.
No, I mean, the reason why I asked was Enzo brought it up. He thought, if you're not a marketing band, a well-known established band, you won't find anything really out here. So I'm actually working on a documentary called The History of the Underground, where I'm actually getting groups from all over the world to be a part of it. That's going to be released on Amazon. I'd love to bring you a part of it and your vocalist, to have your guys' feedback on the music industry over there in the UK, all that. And also, it'd be even probably a great idea because it gets your music, your project, and other projects that you guys are working on, a little bit more accessible. Because they'll be on Amazon. So I'm going to release it on Amazon, and it'll be in English and Spanish. So you'll get it all the way up to Australia where they speak English, but then the South American countries.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be honored to be involved.
I'll send you a link of what I got so far. I got it's like a 31-minute just an idea for all the bands to see how it's coming together. Just on some of the questions and stuff like that. Yeah, because being
that sounds fantastic. That's a great idea.
It was working out really well until the pandemic hit, and then everything just the world just stopped.
It was quite something.
Did that, when the pandemic hit, you guys over there, what did you do during that time? You know, did you have it gave you more time to, I guess, create and think about what you wanted to do or what?
It's one of those, the pandemic in and of itself, I was quite lucky it didn't affect me in a deeply personal way in and of itself. But I think the sort of circumstances and consequences of it, like almost every single one of us, it did change some of my perspectives and where I allocated time and all kinds of other things and where I was living. So yeah, let me think. I think it was February that I was recording the drums for this most recent album. And then 4 weeks later, we got put into the lockdown situation here in the UK. So yeah, it did give me time to work on the records, which was good. But then I moved, and that took me quite far away from being able to have access to any of my audio equipment. So it did put a bit of a more intermittent progress on when I could do things. And that's when things became a little bit more challenging because of the government implementing sort of limited movements within the country and places you could go and how many people you could be around at one time. And that really affected progress as well. So in that respect, the pandemic did interfere with how quickly I could create the record, which is odd, really, because you think, oh, world's shut down, great, I'll just jump straight in with working on a whole load of music. But for me, actually, almost the reverse seemed to happen because the songs were written. It was more about being able to finish them.
but it gave you time to polish them up as well. Yeah,
exactly. It did. That's for sure. It really did. And perhaps had those circumstances not have been the case, it might have been a different album that I'd have just been like, yeah, let's get it out. It's done.
That's what I was about to say, because I mean, from what I hear on this album, it's like it was well written. I was just like, wow, I mean,
that's very kind of you. Thank you.
I mean, if you know, everyone has their nits and grits about the pandemic, but I think for like a musician, like especially for yourself, you didn't have that extra time to work on that album, on production wise, structuring wise. I don't think this album would be where it is, because this is a really great album. And I think that time actually helped you out like 100%, you know?
Yeah. No, there's definitely that to it. You know what one of the most frustrating things about it was? And this is again sort of in part down to sort of like the ripple effect that situation had on like logistics and production and manufacturing, is the album was finished back in December 2021. But because of the backlog in pressing plants and getting it actually manufactured and reproduced, that's why it wasn't available until November last year in 22. But it was done for the best part. It had been sent off to press almost a year prior, which was quite frustrating because it was like, right, well, it's done. Like, now just got to wait.
Yeah, let me see the samples, and I can imagine the frustration on that, but at the same time, it was kind of like a blessing because you had all this time to redesign the album, especially like your I think you had like a ladder LP.
But we had a what? Sorry.
on your vinyl, you had like kind of like a splatter design.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it gave you guys more time to, hey, let's come up with a better idea on the vinyl work and stuff like that. Did that help you out too?
Yeah. Do you know what? I think there were options like that did come up, and I tell you where it did help. Look, I'm usually previously before this album, with the release of any of our previous albums, it's kind of like I've just had the Facebook page and other things like that just for pure necessity. I've never really given it much time or effort, I'll be honest. But this time, I think having that lead up, like that almost a whole year to lead up to the release, it gave me some time to think about, well, you know what, let's make a bit more noise about it than just say, okay, the album is now out. So it gave me some time to consider some ideas as to how to sort of put some promotion up online and make a bit of noise about it. You know.
Well, I mean, that's how I noticed when you tagged Tony and Venom Inc. And that's how I was like, oh wow, you know, let's see what you guys had to offer. And I was like, when I heard some of the tracks, I was like, I went to the previous album, and like, hey, you know, this band's pretty rocking, you know, I liked it.
Amazing.
And, so I think when you did your production work, you tagged certain groups.
Yeah.
I think that actually helped out. What did the label do during that time for promoting that?
They tend not to get involved with anything that we do. I think I should probably ask them, but they've got good relationships with other distros and distributors. So when the album is finished and manufactured, there's a lot of exchanges that go on there. So they provide copies to other distros and things like that. So more of the practical things that I don't have any involvement in at all. So that's definitely what they do. But in terms of the actual promoting of the record itself through our channels, like we're kind of responsible for that. Tell you what they did do as well. The label did pay a guy called Paul at a PR company called Imperative PR, who are great to us, really nice guys. And they helped do like some e-marketing and provide copies to like other news outlets and things like that. So tell a lie, they did that as well.
Here, I'm going to ask you on this, since you guys handle your own promoting and on your channels and all that. Just to help out the younger generations that are coming out that really don't know what to do. Here, can you explain like exactly how you promoted your stuff, like on your channel? So it gives them an idea of what to do for them, even though it won't be the same music, but it gives them a template. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I think, look, I'm no guru at this, so just let me put that in as a prefix here. But I think in terms of making the right sounds about your album, be sure to start promoting it from maybe a month or two before you release it. Any longer than that, people will probably get fatigued with the message of, yes, the album's coming out. Look, you know, we're not Metallica. You know, we can't like G up that much hype for an album. I mean, maybe there's going to be someone out there that would be as keen, but for the most part, you know, don't over egg the cake too far in advance of releasing it. And the other bit of advice is have videos pre-filmed and made and edited that are ready to go at the point of release, or even just before you release the album, to get some interest, get the video out to people that might not necessarily have heard your music before. and then also have something like another video or something else, just some kind of like content to go alongside your album that you can release a little bit after, just so you can fill in some of those gaps that might be missing. You know, not everyone's going to be watching your Facebook page like a hawk, or you know, not everyone's necessarily going to have that much awareness about what you're doing. So yeah, have things in your promotional cannon, so to speak, ready to fire out at sort of stages in order to reach people who might be interested. And if you've got guests, tag them or ask them to share your creative outlet or your song or album, whatever it is. And yeah, I think just have a bit of a plan in place ahead. It doesn't have to be hard and fast, but just something that you can go on as a guide. What else? Get a PR agency to do the rest, because frankly, they'll know people at zines and podcasts and reviewers, etc., that you won't necessarily have contact or access to anyway. So it's worth investing in that kind of thing. But yeah, that would be my advice to anyone starting out, or maybe not just starting out, maybe just wanting to try a different approach to releasing your music in what is frankly a very digital driven world now. So yeah, magazines, you know, they're great, but they don't have maybe as many people invested in them as what there was sort of 10, 15 years ago, for example.
Oh, that's true. I mean, it seems like even me, my actual magazine page on Facebook, it's got those numbers, but when you look for the group Pure Metal of Gods, it's got like, you know, 1.8K on there. I'm like, you know, I'm over here scratching my head like,
yeah,
why is everyone going to the group and not coming to the magazine page? But you know, like you said, it's up to your audience where they want to go share,
yeah,
where they feel comfortable. You know, even the YouTube channel is growing. And, you know, I've been lucky that I've had Grammy artists on there. So you know, for anybody starting out in the music industry or a YouTube channel or want to do a magazine, you know, I'll just say it. Just reach out to the artists. They're pretty cool. They'll tell you, hey, we got to go through our record label to do the interview, but it's still busy. But most of the artists are pretty much cool, and they'll say, yeah, sure, like you did, dude. I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, you've been in contact with 3 or 4 times throughout the months, you know, and we planned it when I didn't have Zoom at the time. And I believe you remember that conversation. I thought, no, I don't got Zoom, but I'm working on getting it. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the magazine's based in Texas, but I was actually very shocked that we've reached all the way out to Europe now and to Asia. So, in a short period of time. And I want to thank everybody, you know, that listens to Metal of God. You know, thank you for supporting the magazine for that. And continue to support it. And I'm pretty sure, James, I don't know if you won't mind if I put like a snippet of one of your songs in the podcast.
Yeah, please do. Absolutely.
Yeah, just let your label know if I play one of the songs. Tell me out on the copyright. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're good to do that. I don't know how it works exactly, but I do know that sometimes if you put a piece of audio in a video or something and you upload it to like YouTube like automatically can try and censor that. I don't know if there's anything I can do to sort of circumvent that being the case. But yeah, please just put whatever you want in it, mate. It's really not a problem for me at all. And or the label, it will be absolutely fine.
All right, cool. if I can, just let let them know that hey, if they got any new artists, give me my email and possibly do future interviews for anyone on the label as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a gracious guest, and I appreciate your time and
likewise. Thank you for asking. It's good to talk.
well, appreciate it. Hey, you want to say anything to any of your fellow musicians that helped you out on the channel? I'm gonna be tagging Venom Inc. on here later on because we mentioned them and talk about it. So
Yeah, well, just massively thankful to everyone that's helped make the latest records and in whatever capacity that is, because I had friends help out with the art through to guests doing vocals. So yeah, it's hugely appreciative of it all. And obviously to anyone that's actually picked up a physical copy of the album, it's absolutely wonderful to have your support, and to people like yourself as well for giving us some time. It is hugely appreciated. So yeah, thank you to anyone and everybody that's been involved and helped support the release. Well, I hope you enjoy it.